privacy. So, but yeah, I mean, and then actually once we were on the road more and more, my mom ended up staying home to help arrange the events because we were having so many requests for me to appear at various places.
What is Angela up to these days? What big plans does she have?
Well, she's finishing up her first fantasy novel, Issen, which has been a major project for her, and she's quite near the end of it. And
will you vouch for her?
Excuse me?
Will you vouch for her?
I will once I read the book.
All right.
She's been working on it for a couple of years, and she hasn't allowed anyone to read it.
Does she want to self-publish it, or does she want to go the publishing route?
Well, she's going to go the publishing route probably, simply because there's no need for her to go the self-published route. Our agent is very willing and eager to look at the book, so that will definitely be a help for her.
Do you ever feel overwhelmed with writing and want to give up?
Occasionally. Well, no, I never want to give up writing. Sometimes I may want to take a break from it or do something else for a while, but I never want to give up writing. I love telling stories, and that's what I want to do. And whether I do it with movies or music or writing, however it happens to be, I love telling stories.
This might be a bit of a question. All right. This might be a bit of a question, just kind of edged in sideways here, but well, two-part question too. When you first started writing this book, did you expect it to become this big, or was it just something you wrote for fun?
I wrote for fun. I never thought it was going to be published, and I never thought it was. I certainly didn't think it was going to be a bestseller. I mean, I almost quit the book a couple of times because I thought it was so horrible, and it was only my parents who said, we've seen you work on this, we've seen the energy you've put into it. We really think you need to finish it, and their encouragement kept me going. I mean, there was one point I actually decided that I was going to abandon the book and go off to read college.
Well, I'm very glad you did.
I had the orientation papers on my desk, so it really was on the, as they say, on the edge of the razor for a while.
Wow. You're living at home now. Do you have plans to move out on your own anytime in the future, or are you just kind of enjoying hanging with your family?
Well, until I get, I'm I'm not in college right now. I'm in a deadline and in contract. And until I finish the next two books of the trilogy, I really don't have time to do pretty much anything else. And moving would be far too disruptive to contemplate at this point.
Well, with the royalties, you can definitely pay for it, can't you?
Well, that I am self-sufficient at this point. But I probably, once the trilogy is done, I may consider, doing something a little bit different, traveling a little bit, reading a lot more. But I'm pretty much locked up until the trilogy's finished.
Are you going to add another dragon in your books?
Well, I don't think it's giving away too much by saying that the cover of Book 2 is a giant, brilliant, absolutely gorgeous, and rather menacing red dragon.
Cool.
And Book 3 has a green dragon on the front.
Okay, just taking off on the Dragon Riders of Pern debacle that goes on. Is the cover of Eragon, is that really what Saphira looks like, or is that you had something different in mind?
That is not how Saphira looks.
No?
It's a very pretty cover, but it's nothing like what Saphira looks.
Okay, I was hoping she didn't really have that big chin.
No. I drew the dragon eye on the inside of the book, and that's a little more of what I thought her eye might look like. So no, it's a beautiful cover, but it's not what Saphira actually looks like.
Christopher?
Yes.
I'd just like to say that I've read a lot of books, and so far, Eragon has been the best book I've read.
Well, thank you.
Oh, that's nice.
Thank you. Well, I can't ask for anything better.
Christopher, is there anything you'd like to contribute or see me put up on ChrisPaolini.com?
Hey, if you could get a copy or a JPEG of what the original cover of the self-published book looked like, that would be great to see up.
Yep.
I did like that cover a lot.
Yeah, I did like that one too.
That's about it.
Okay, thank you.
What self-publishing advice could you give for teen writers?
Ooh, well, self-publishing is not, it's not easy. It requires many different skills. You have to be able to do graphic layout, you have to do editing, you have to understand the financial details of the process. There are a lot of very good books out on the market that explain how to self-publish. You can find a lot of them in your local Barnes & Noble or some other large bookstore or on Amazon.
What do you say about...
Excuse me?
Print on demand. What publicity advice could you give teens who've already self-published their book and are having so little difficulty?
I'll answer both of those questions. Print on demand is very good if you're self-publishing because it means that you only print the number of books that you actually need at one time.
Right.
And yeah, and I do recommend it. It worked well for us.
Excuse me, can I take that as you self-published first and then you had the book picked up by a publisher?
Yes.
Okay.
Little kids that are just talking.
But as far as publicity, I mean, publicity is hard to get when you're a small publisher. I found it was much easier to get publicity in small towns where you're much bigger news than in a place like, say, Houston. So I would go into a small town. I'd arrange to do a presentation at the local school or library, and then I would call the papers and the and the radio shows and the television stations and say, this is who I am and this is what I'm doing, and would you be interested in writing a story about it? And that's pretty much how I got my publicity.
Christopher?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've been reading lots of books. Yeah, I kind of did that. But I came across the name Aria in it, and it wasn't Eragon.
Really?
Eragon.
Did it happen to be a David Eddings book?
No, it was George R.R. Martin.
Actually, I have not read any of George R.R. Martin. However, I did come across the name of Aria in a David Eddings book recently, and the only thing that saved me from complete embarrassment was the fact that he published his book after Eragon.
Okay.
No, I took the name Aria. I simply modified aria as in an opera, the aria of an opera or something, a song.
Have there been any disadvantages to becoming famous?
Not really. I mean, there's been a lack of. I mean, there's certainly you lose some privacy, but that's not something you can really complain about with all the advantages.
No one's asking any questions at the moment. I think I have one. This kind of turned into a bit of almost a little debate on the Eragon front, but I just kind of knocked off before it turned into an argument. But I always kind of thought that even though I really couldn't finish reading the book right away because it was a borrowed book, I think I got to the part where I believe Sapphire would have been like 8 months old or so. I always thought she sounded very old for how young she was in the real world. I mean, that kind of put it up to the fact that maybe her egg was around longer than she was actually around and heard more. Could that work?
Well, her egg was. I don't know for certain exactly how old her egg is. I mean, I would have to sit down and actually figure that out. But I do know for certain that Galbatorix had her egg in his possession for at least 100 years or so.
Okay, and so she could hear while she was in the egg, right?
Well, I'm not sure exactly how conscious she was, but she was. I mean, she was attuned to the minds and the consciousnesses around her, which is, of course, how a dragon chooses his or her rider. And there's also the possibility of the dragons having a bit of a collective consciousness, if you will, or almost, like instincts, if you will, that are passed from one dragon to the next, or they're born with.
Racial memories.
Yeah, racial memory a bit, and that's dealt with some more in
all right.
Two.
Yeah, I figured that maybe Saphira as herself was old, but her egg. Saphira as herself, she was young, but her egg was old.
Yeah.
And so she would have been able to listen, because I know she spoke with very good diction.
Oh yes.
All right. Okay, thank you.
How old is Galbatorix?
Galbatorix.
He's at least 100.
Excuse me?
He's at least 100.
Yeah, he's about 120 years old or so. Yeah, that's about right.
Do you think some print-on-demand books are rip-offs?
Are rip-off?
Like, do you think that is it worth it?
Well, do you mean are the books worth it? Are the companies that print the books worth it?
Yeah. Like, sometimes do they, take your money and they don't produce good quality books?
Yes, it does happen.
Do you know of any good print-on-demand book publishers?
The best thing you can do...
Let's publish America.
No, well, the best thing you can do is do a little bit of research. You can simply go onto Google and start doing some searches for print on demand. I believe that Ingram, which is one of the biggest book distributors in the country,